If I were to ask you what you think about during the course of an average day, would you be able to tell me? Would you be able to tell me? Most people probably would. Would you know if I asked you how important what you think about during the day is? Would you be able to tell me? We are in our series called Strongholds. The first week we started off with the cross and we painted the picture that the strongholds described in 2 Corinthians 10, they're not necessarily sin habits and behavior, but yet they are what I proposed as a worldview issue. It deals more with our thinking than anything. We dealt with the first week on Resurrection Sunday that Jesus came and took care of this sin problem. We painted the next week the idea that we all have these fortresses that have been built up in our worldview, unbeknownst to us or beknownst to us. Either way, we have got these strongholds and these fortresses that have been built up in our minds as absolute truth. Last week, we talked about speculations where Paul says that we are destroying speculations. We went through some of the ideas of the different things that we use to, the reasoning and the thinking that we use to defend our position in the fortresses that we have. We will have a fortress. The real question is, who is that fortress? Is God going to be the fortress, or are we going to rely on the wisdom of man? We go off into the second half of verse 5 today. Verse 5 reads like this, says, "We are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God, and we are taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ." That is where we are going to park today, is taking every thought obedient to Christ. So let's define a couple of these terms that are where Paul is at this morning. First of all, taking captive. Taking captive it quite literally means to take something prisoner. And that's what it's getting at. But what it is to actually to get control of something. To take something captive means to get control of whatever it is that we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about thoughts. You need to get control of your thoughts. This mind, our thoughts, this schemes. Oh yes, our thinking comes in schemes. Ask Judas Iscariot. Okay? Thoughts are basically the psychological facility of reasoning. It is the content of our reasoning and our thinking. What Paul is saying here is that we have got to get control of the content of our reasoning and our thinking. First things first. If we are going to take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, the first step is to, number one, I'm going to go do a real quick overview of the core six again, starting with Genesis, but maybe with a little twist this time. You see, if we're going to take every thought captive to be obedient to Christ, the first step in the process is Genesis 1. It is knowing who created you and why He created you. Okay? We are not this body. We are not this physical stuff that we're made of. What Carl Sagan would call stardust. Whatever. Dirt is, we're made of dirt. God breathed life in, formed the clay, and He breathed life into it. Right? We are not a body that happens to have a spirit. We are spirit that happens to have a body. Because when God said, let us make man in our image, what is that image? God is spirit. He's not flesh. Jesus came in the flesh. But what is God? God is spirit. So if he said, let's create man in our image, that means that he created us spirit first. Because God created the heavens and then he created the earth. The spiritual realm is first. The physical realm is second. We are a spirit that has been assigned a body. Have you watched, it's kind of gruesome here, but has anybody watched anybody die? I know, Captain Obvious, yeah. You can watch that person leave. You can see it. You can sit there and watch that person go from the person who you know to that just being a shell of who that was. Who they were is not there. Who they were is now with God. We are not body with a spirit, but we are a spirit that has been assigned a body. You are not the flesh and blood that is sitting here this morning. You are spirit in your very nature. I told you this was going to be a little bit different than usual. Who we are. And the comforting thing is for a Christian, death is not the end. Death is not the end. It is a simple transition from one existence to the next. That's all it is. It is a transition from the here and now to the next. Over the last 2 years, I have buried some of my favorite people. It's something that I knew when I came here 6 years ago, that you're going to grow close to people and you're going to send them off into the next world, ready or not. My prayer is that this brings comfort, that death is not the end, especially for a Christian. The next of the core 6 is, Numbers 2 and 3. Genesis 15, 5 and 6, and Habakkuk 2, 4. This spirit that we are has been called into a relationship with God. We are called to have faith in the Creator who has stated that he will save us. From the very first Hebrew words in Genesis 1:1, he has stated that Jesus Christ will come on a tree with nails to save us. We have been called to have faith and trust in him. John 3:16 is the next one, where Jesus Christ is the object of this faith. It is he who resolves the sin problem of the world, that Scotty just so eloquently put. Jesus Christ takes care of that sin problem. He resolves it, and he says over and over in the Gospel of John, if you would trust and believe in the one whom the Father has sent. But this is not just something that is a lip service. This is a believing to the very fiber and the very core of who we are. This is a trust and a belief that when confronted with this, can and does transform the life of the hearer to the fact that you don't recognize that person who you were before. I know I sure don't. That man that was me 15 years ago is long gone. The me that was me 4 years ago is gone. I'm completely different. You all see the me now. You didn't see the me from yesteryear. I was not a nice person. And that old man likes to creep up every now and then. That prideful, arrogant young gun loves to creep up every now and then. Hebrews 11 goes on. Jesus Christ is the object of our faith who resolves the sin problem of our world. Hebrews 11 states that without faith it's impossible to please God. And the folks contained in Hebrews 11, from Abraham and Moses and Sarah to Abel and Noah. These people did what they did because they had faith. They knew who they were. They knew what their purpose was. They knew that they were called out to have faith and trust in the Lord, and they went out and did amazing things because they believed in God. They didn't do what they did in order to be saved. They did what they did because they were saved. The exercise in taking your thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ is not a behavior modification plan. It isn't. It is knowing who you are and knowing whose you are. That is what taking your thoughts captive. Because to take a line from Star Wars, as in the very first episode 4, Han Solo and Chewbacca are carrying old Ben Kenobi and the 2 droids and Luke Skywalker from Tatooine to Alderaan. And in the midst, old Ben is training Luke. And he says to Luke, "Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them." I'm going to shift that just a little bit. Your thoughts can deceive you. Don't trust them. Take them captive to the obedience of Christ. We finalize out the core 6 with Revelation 21. And see, here's another shift where what I've said in the past, and it still holds true, but just kind of tweaking and fine-tuning the precision a little bit. We have Revelation 21 as a thing to look forward to. No more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain, no more tears. This is a time that we look forward to. However, we live here and now. And that's a future point. Right now, we're here in this body, in this flesh, in this blood. But remember what I said at the very beginning, because this is why creation matters. We are not a body that has been assigned a spirit. We are a spirit that has been assigned a body. With that in mind, we live here and now in this earthly existence in the light of eternity. We live in the light of what is to come one day. No more death, no more tears, no more sorrow. We live in that light right here and right now. That eternal life that Christ promises isn't something for a future date. It is right here. It is now. It is living. It is active. It's not simply waiting for a future perfected state to get here, but it is living right here and right now in this moment. So we take our thoughts captive. I asked you at the beginning, are you aware of your thoughts? Do you mind? Do you keep in mind what you think about? You see, how we think actually comes in a few different factors. It comes from our personality. You guys have heard Bill and I teach a class on colors and different personalities and stuff such like this. But it's not just personality. There's a good factor in it. But it's personality. It is what the school teaches. It is what our culture lives and teaches. It is what our country believes, and teaches. It is how we were raised by our parents. I cannot tell you how many conversations I had with Grandpa Guy on the subject of how you were raised by your parents affecting your future life. Too many conversations to remember. You see, the beliefs of our parents, the philosophies of how they raised us, the pitfalls, the benefits, all of these things that we were raised with affect us, even the downfalls, the pitfalls, and the failures of our parents. And by the time we get to 20 years old, we are messed up by ourselves, by the world, by our parents. We need to realize that all of these things, our personality, school, culture, country, our parents, beliefs, philosophies, we need to realize that they all can and they do have flaws. Unfortunately, this is a fallen and a sinful world. Nobody's perfect. But these things shape and they frame everything that we encounter in life. Everything. They frame how we react in a moment. They color how we interpret what somebody else says. Well, they're attacking me. Maybe. But they may be just, that may just be your perception. It may be your past coloring that. Because you had a parent that did nothing but abuse you. It shapes our interactions with people. It shapes our reactions to things. It colors our relationships. It colors our perception of reality. This next part is not going to be in your notes. I'm going to qualify before I go on into this next. Bless you. I'm going to qualify this next section by saying I tried everything I could to not get this into this sermon. And right now my guts are just butterflies and churning. I do not want to go here. But as much as I argued with God this week, he's like, you need to say this. It has to be said. Okay. Yeah, fine. I've given up arguing with God. You know what? God gets his way, he just, whew. So let's put this in a real life example, if you will. And I'm going to take a larger example, and I'm going to take our church as an example of this, of taking our thoughts captive. The last 2 months, it started off in March, and I said that the state of the church is not good. That 94% of people will claim to have a biblical, or 64% of people will claim to have a biblical worldview, when in actuality only 4% of adults and 2% of parents have a biblical worldview. That leaves the other 94% as having what's called syncretism. And that is basically what that means. It's a hodgepodge of 1,000 different worldviews melded into one that's contradictory and doesn't make any sense. 94% of Americans. I also said in a week or two ago that, it was last week, when I was asking for prayers for Larry and I in this Jeremiah 10:12 thing that we're doing. I said last week that the rural church is dying. It is. The rural church is dying. And if the rural church dies, America is gone. The rural church cannot be allowed to die. This church has been around since 1903, if I'm not mistaken. That's what's on the plaque outside, which means this church is older than the state of Oklahoma by 4 years. For 119 years, if my math is correct, for 119 years, what we have done has gotten us this far in this church. However, we will not make it past 10 or 15 more years if something does not change. Because, as I stated in the beginning of the sermon, over the last 2 years, I have buried people that I did not want to bury. I was not ready to bury. I was not ready to say goodbye to. You guys weren't ready either. None of us were. Pillars of this church. Over the next 10 years, I will continue to do that. I'm looking out at faces here that I know that if I'm still here, I will be doing the funerals for. And the problem is that there's not going to be anybody here left. We will not be able to afford a full-time preacher. We will not be able to afford to keep the doors open. This church will have no other choice but to close. Something has to change. What we have done so far has gotten us this far. But if we want to make it past another 10 or 15 years, something has got to change. I look out at some of my favorite people. I love you all. You need to know how much I love you guys.
We love you too.
But I see tired faces. I see faces that have carried the burden of this church. The tendency to think is that the preacher carries the burden of the church. No. It's you all. It's you guys who have been here longer than I have. You guys have carried the burden of this church. And you guys are tired. We have tried to continue to do things that we've always done, and it's wearing us out. We're tired, we're worn out, we're burnt out, and it's time for the next generation to take. It's time for the next generation to take the burden of the church and run with it. But all of the folks have grown up and moved away. You guys have did a good job. They're benefiting other churches, but they're not here. And the people and the young people that are here in town are missing from this church. The 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, and the 40-somethings. We went, let me tell you where I went last week. I went to Oklahoma City. I said I had a meeting for this Jeremiah 10:12 stuff in Oklahoma City with a pastor. What I was looking for, what Larry and I thought we were looking for, was a larger church to partner with us. They have more people, more resources. Maybe they can kind of help us to revitalize the rural church. Hey, you know what? You guys have got plenty of people in your church for whatever the case. Send a team out here and let us build a team out here on a Sunday morning or whenever, and let's do something. What I went and found out was that we didn't need their help; they needed our help. Because surprisingly enough, in the city they are experiencing the exact same thing that we are. This is a church-wide problem. You know the generations that are missing in the city? The 20, the 30, and the 40-somethings. They are conspicuously missing out of all of our churches. Why? Why are the churches missing? Why are these people missing out of our churches? We have had people come in here. I have heard everything from church is too much like a country club to it's not friendly to I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the other. I mean, it's 1,000 different things. But we have to meet people where they are. And the problem is that we've got a great bunch of people who have been doing this for a long time and are tired. So what needs to happen is we need to go back to the drawing board and we need to evaluate everything. I'm talking Sunday school, Bible study. I'm talking about youth groups, ladies groups. I'm talking about Sunday morning worship. I'm talking about reevaluating the whole thing. Now, what I'm not saying is we need to become megachurch 2.0. Because guess who's having problems too? Megachurch 2.0. We don't need to do what they're doing in the big churches in a small church. We need to be thinking in a manner that is completely new and different from anything else that we have ever seen before. It has to be so radically different that nobody's doing this. I'll tell you where it starts. It's going to start by forming relationships. It's going to start by becoming what's called a sticky church. People come, but they don't stick. The first time somebody comes, it's because you all invite them. That's why they come. The second time they come back is because of the preaching. Oh, preaching was good. Yeah, I'll come back a second time. They come back a third time because of the relationships that they have started to build within the church. That's why they come back and they are sticky. If they do not find that in there, they will not come back. We need to become a sticky church. You are a prime example of why you have stuck, Tammy. It's because you have found relationships within these walls. We have got good things happening here. All I'm saying is that we're spread too thin. We are spread too thin. We need to take our Sunday morning worship, whether we keep it the same or we evaluate it, whatever we do, we need to keep Sunday morning, whatever we're doing, and then we need to have 2, at the max, 3 more things, and we do them really, really well. And we stop spreading ourselves so doggone thin that we're frustrated and we don't have enough time to go 1,000 different directions. Because it's the same people doing the same things. Let us cut down what we're doing and let us do 2 to 3 things really, really well. We cannot afford to do things the way we used to. Here's the taking thoughts captive. Okay, I've said all of this to tie in the captive thoughts right here and right now. We need to take our thoughts captive because the way we think is that we've always done this. I like the way this goes. I like the way our worship service is. I like the way our youth group runs. I like our ladies groups. And we like this stuff. But unfortunately, whether intentional or not, that tends to lean towards a consumer mentality. We need to capture our thoughts and not go with what I like and what I want to get out of the service or the youth group or whatever, but we need to ask this question instead. What am I willing to give up? What is one of my comforts that I'm willing to give up to see somebody of the 20, 30, and 40-something generation come through the door? What am I willing to sacrifice to see somebody else coming up through the door? And stay. It may simply be that we get out of our comfort zone and we talk to people that come through the door. Now, by all means, please don't overwhelm them. Because I've seen where we scare people away. It's like, whoa, man, they're just all over people. Woo! You can be a little too scary too. What comforts am I willing to give up? What am I willing to sacrifice to see the missing generations come in? Because the truth of the matter is, it is very unlikely that they come to us. Just is. We're going to have to go to them. We are going to have to go to them. And we're going to have to meet them where they're at. if we are not willing to give up anything, if we're not willing to do something, then I can tell you that we won't last into the next coming generations, because right now we're okay. Okay? Right now we're fine. Right now we're great. But we don't need to be waiting till 10 more years till everything's on the precipice and there's no leaders, there's no people here. We can't wait till then. The time to be active is now. We have to do something now, because I've got one of the best leadership teams I have ever had here. I have got 3 guys, and Scotty, Bill, and Alan, that are the cream of the crop as far as leadership goes. But there's nobody behind them for them to train. And we're going to be in a world of hurt in 10 years because we have nobody to train up for leadership. We have a few good men. We have a few people. Take your thoughts, Kevin. That's right. I want you to. Here's what I'm asking, and this is going to be a big ask. Okay, the first aspect of this is I want you to partner with me in this. Okay, I want you to partner with me in this. The second thing I want you to do is the first step in this, and this is pray. We need to be praying for 3 things, okay? Number 1, we're going to pray. I want you to pray for boldness, power, and authority within this congregation, not just me, but the whole congregation, that the whole congregation would have the boldness, the power, and the authority to proclaim the gospel to this community. It's the first thing you're going to pray, okay? The second thing I want you to pray is I want you to pray for the leadership teams, Alan, Scotty, and Bill. I want you to pray for wisdom and discernment for them to be the leaders they need to be, to follow where the Lord leads. And I want you to pray for me. Third, I want you to pray for me. And what I want you to pray for me is that I will become the leader today that I need to be for when our church is twice our size. I'm not saying if it happens. I'm saying when. Because we have got a good thing going here. It's just time to get up and do something. Pray that I would become the leader that I need to be for when our church is twice our size. We've been averaging so far this year around 25 to 30. So pray that I would become the leader I need to be for when our church is 50 to 60 every Sunday. And in amongst that, I don't want to turn this into confession time, but I'm going to use myself as an example in this. I am not the leader I should be. I have skated my way through life giving 50% in everything because 50% was good enough. What I have become keenly aware of is that the time for doing things halfway is no more, because it's not good enough, because I'm capable of so much more. Skating by will no longer do. Because if we are going to do this together, then I need to become the leader that I need to be. And I need to be willing to sacrifice some things in order to see that happen. For those of you who have been through the colors class, I am a green. Yes, I know I've said I am a blue. I've come to the realization that I'm not a blue. I am a green. I'm not blue. I am a green, and I am blue second. And I'm beginning to see that my third color is orange, because I love my freedom. And you want to know why I've only done things halfway? It's because I love my freedom. I love to be able to do the things that I want to do. And the time for that is no more. I can't. Because for me to become the leader that I need to be, I cannot do what I have continued to do. I have to take my thoughts captive, and I have to change the way I think. I am undergoing some pretty heavy personal development. I have got some things. I'm going to start off. I'm going to try to read a book a month, whether on leadership or small church. I have got to become an expert in small church ministry. I have to. I can't afford not to. I have to go and learn. I have to get a doctorate without getting the doctorate.
Cheaper.
It is cheaper. No, I'm asking you guys to partner with me on this because I'm not willing to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I have to be willing to sacrifice things in order to see things come here. And that means that it starts with me first. I pray for revival that begins with us. Revival starts with me, not the other person. It starts with me. The big idea for today: be mindful of your thoughts and make them submit to Jesus. Partner with me. Pray for the congregation to be bold, power, and authority in the proclaiming the gospel to the community. I want you to pray for the leadership for wisdom and discernment. And thirdly, I want you to pray for me to become the leader that I need to be when our church is twice our size. And that's where it's going to start. I can't tell you what this is going to look like because I really, honestly, don't have a clue. I have no idea. I just know that we have to go back to the drawing board. I don't know. I'm going to play a song of invitation here in a second. I want you to listen to the words. If you're familiar with this song, it's Matthew West, Do Something. I want you to listen to the words of this song. I'm going to close out this time with us by giving an example. Larry and I were talking with a youth minister friend of ours at the Camp Leaders Conference. And we ran across the Angel Tree program that sends incarcerated kids. Their parents are incarcerated. It sends the kids to church camp for free, and they pay for it. And it benefits the church and the church and the camp because it gives us kid contacts to be able to minister to them and their families. Joel ran across this Angel Tree group, and he said, I need to sit back and I need to pray on this. No. Different Joel. Youth Pastor Joel. Yeah, no. And Joel goes, I need to sit back and I need to pray on this and wait for God to move. And Larry looked at him and goes, God has already moved. It's time to get up and do something. God has already moved, guys. It's time for us to get up. And it's time for us to do something.